Hi guys, and welcome to my channel where today I will be walking you through how to make your very own uterus plushie. The best part about her, in my opinion, is that she's super low sew. The only portions that we are really sewing are the fallopian tubes to the ovaries to the body, and the fallopian tubes to the body, of course. And as you can see, once again, I have used two different colored yarns and different sized yarns in order to achieve the effect that I wanted for both the ovaries and the uterus body. So for the body today, I'm going to be using the Yarnspirations Bernat blanket yarn in the colorway Tan Pink, which is a size 6 super bulky weight yarn. And for the ovaries, I am using the Loops and Threads Skinny Chenille yarn in the colorway Polar Bear, which is a size 4 medium yarn. So the things that you will need for this project are obviously the pink yarn and the white yarn, as well as a 3.75 millimeter hook for the ovaries, and a 5 or a 4.5 millimeter hook to make your uterus. Now this uterus specifically was used making a 5 millimeter hook, and this smaller uterus was used making a 4.5 millimeter hook, which is what I will be showing you today, just because I like the effect of the smaller uterus, and I think it will do much better in my market sales. And so some other things you'll need are a stitch marker, a pair of scissors, and obviously some stuffing to stuff your uterus. Without further ado, let's get into the tutorial and I'll show you guys how to make your very own uterus plushie. Alright, so to start with this tutorial, we are going to make 2 ovaries, and I will show you how to make one, and then you can make the second one by yourself, as it is fairly easy. So we're going to start by forming a magic ring and placing 6 single crochets into that magic ring. And then to do the second row, we are going to increase in each stitch so that we are ending with 12 stitches. Okay, so now that we have our 12 crochets in the round, we have finished round 2, and we will be continuing now doing 12 single crochets each round for the next 5 rounds. So I'll meet you back there after I'm done with that. Okay, so I'm done with my 5 rounds, and as you can see, our little ovary is starting to take shape. What I'm going to do next is stuff her so that we can decrease in the next round, as it will be too small to stuff in the next round. And there we go. So for the next round and the final round of your ovary, you're going to decrease in each stitch. So each 2 stitches will turn into 1 stitch, and we will finish with 6 stitches. So now that we have decreased once again to our 6 stitches, we are going to go ahead and cut or break your yarn and pull through this stitch. So I will do 1 single crochet by also pulling through the loop, and then we are going to go through and pull this string through the front loop of each of your 6 stitches so that we can go ahead and close it off.
So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6.
And then you can go ahead and pull just gently on this so that we close up the loop. And it is okay if this top portion isn't perfect. I often find that just by stuffing it, I end up with lots of wispies. We can cut those away later, as well as you can sew this top portion to the fallopian tube so that you're not staring at a couple of little holes that may have resulted from your decreases. So I'm going to pull this yarn through the body, and I will cut it off so that it is secured. And you can do this with a sewing needle as well if you'd like, or a darning needle. I find it quicker to do with my hook, and so that's what I do. And pull through, and I will cut this off so that we have a finished ovary. And so you're going to go ahead and make 2 of these little squishy ovaries, which should turn out somewhat oval, and then at the end, you end up with 2. And I will come back to you after that and show you how to begin with the uterus. Alright, now that we have finished and cleaned up our 2 ovaries, we are going to start on the uterus body here, we're going to start in the same way that we did with the ovaries, only this time we are going to place 7 single crochets into that magic ring. So now we have our 7 single crochets done in the round. I'm going to gently pull on that tail and finish closing up my ring. And for round 2, we are going to place an increase into each of the following 7 stitches of the round, and we will finish with 14 stitches. So now that we have finished round 2, which was 7 increases, giving us 14 stitches, we are going to continue, and this time we are going to go 1 single crochet and then increase 7 times, which will leave us with 21 stitches at the end of this round. So now that we are here, we have finished our 3rd round, and going into the 4th round, we're switching things up just a little bit. We are going to start by doing an increase in the first stitch and then 5 single crochets. So here we are, we have an increase into the first, and then we'll do 5 single crochets. That's 1 and 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now we are going to continue doing this in the round until we have 8 single crochets left. So I'm going to go ahead and increase again. And then we'll do 5 single crochets. I'm going to increase once more. And do 5 more single crochets. 3, 4, 5. And as we were left with 3 stitches, I can tell that that was my last increase, and so I will just finish by doing 3 more single crochets on top of that 5, so we end up with 8 in our last. Now what we are doing here is we are just switching this so that now we can go and work in increments of 6. So next, what we are going to do is place a single crochet in each of the next 3 stitches for our next round, and then we're going to increase. We're going to do this 6 times. So after this, you have finished the 5th round, and you should have 30 stitches in the round. For our next round, we are going to place 4 single crochet, and then we will increase until we reach the end of the round. Okay, now that we have finished round 6, doing 4 single crochet and an increase, you should have 36 stitches in your round. And for the next 4 rounds, rounds 7 to 11, all we are going to do is single crochet into each stitch in the round. And I will come back to you guys once I have finished that. Okay, so I'm back after finishing my 5 rounds of just 36 single crochets in the round. Please make sure that you have done 5 and not 4, I miscounted. So rounds 7 to 11, 5 rounds of 36 single crochets. Now that we've done that, we're going to start decreasing to get to the lower body portions of the uterus. And so for this round, we're going to do 4 single crochets and then 1 decrease. So now that we're at the end of round 12, you should be back to 30 single crochets in the round. And next we are going to continue decreasing. We will do 3 single crochets and a decrease, repeating for the entire round. And you will have 24 single crochets at the end of this round. So now that we are at the end of round 13, you should have 24 single crochets. And we are going to continue decreasing again, and this time we will do 2 single crochets and a decrease for the entire round. And you should be finishing with 18 stitches at the end of this round. So we finished that round of decreasing, and now what I'm going to do before things get too small is I'm going to add the safety eyes in. Now you can use whatever size of safety eyes that you guys want. I'm going to use a little bit smaller of a safety eye this time, just because I find that when I sell at markets, people always have different preferences. And when we're going to be placing it, we're going to place it between rows 9 and 10, and they will be 5 to 6 stitches apart. We have our eyes placed between rows 9 and 10. We are going to do 8 rounds of continuing on with 18 single crochets. So from round 15 to 22, that is 8 rounds of 18 stitches before we continue decreasing. So I will come back to you once I have finished. So now that I have finished my 8 rounds of 18 single crochets, I'm going to go ahead and stuff the head and the body of the uterus, and I'll come back to you once that's done so we can begin decreasing again. Alright, so now that I've finished stuffing the uterus and the uterus body, I will continue decreasing, and so to do so, we're going to do 1 single crochet and 1 decrease for the entire round, which will leave us with 12 single crochets at the end of the round. Now that I have finished with my round of decreases, we are going to do 1 round of 12 single crochets without any decreases. And I will come back to you when I'm done. Alright, so I have finished round 24 where we have done 12 single crochets with no increases or decreases. I have gone ahead and finished stuffing the body so that we can do our last round of decreases. So if you haven't done so already, finish stuffing your uterus, and we will continue doing 6 decrease stitches, and I will come back to you once I am done. So now that I've finished our last round of decreasing, I am going to go ahead and leave a short tail and cut off the yarn so that we can weave in the ends. Don't forget, do 1 single crochet and pull the yarn through it, or slip stitch, sorry. And then we will pull through each of the front loops, which is 6. So we'll do that 6 times. There we go. And then I will gently pull on that tail to close up our bottom. There we go. I like to go in the opposite direction after this, and then I will pull the yarn tail through the body. Moving on, now we are going to be making the fallopian tubes, and what we are going to do is form your magic ring, and we're going to chain 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Then what I'm going to do is slip stitch into the very first stitch there. Try to be careful here so that you are not twisting your yarn, and I'm going to chain 1 just for convenience sake so that I can turn my work. Okay, and so I'm going to pull this tail through so that I can continue to single crochet on top of it. And what we're going to do for the next 24 rounds is 5 single crochets to form the first fallopian tube. Okay, so I have finished my fallopian tube and I have done 24 rounds of single crochets. And what I'm going to do next is cut this side off after doing a slip stitch. And I'm going to leave a longer tail here so that we can use this to sew the fallopian tube to the body. Because oftentimes what I find is the end that I started my fallopian tubes with is a little bit wider, as you can see here, than the end that I finished with. So what we're going to do now is reattach onto the end that we started with, doing a slip stitch here. And what I'm going to do is slip stitch onto any of these 6 stitches, doesn't matter which one. And what we're going to do is a pattern that we are going to repeat 6 times. So as you can see, I've slip stitched onto a stitch. Now I'm going to chain 7, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. And then I'm going to slip stitch back into the stitch that we started with, right here. And then I will slip stitch into the following stitch. And we're going to repeat this pattern 6 times to create the fimbria, or the little fluffy parts that we see surrounding the ovaries. So I've slip stitched into the next stitch. I'm going to chain 7, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. And then I will slip stitch back into the stitch we started with, right here. Oops, getting caught on the tail here. And I do like to go over that original tail that we just created, just so that it is a little bit cleaner, but if you don't, you can always just tuck it in. Just makes me feel a little bit more secure. And then we slip stitch into the next stitch, and we will chain 7 once again. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Once again, slip stitching back into the stitch we came from, and then slip stitching into the following stitch. Okay, so we're going to repeat this 3 more times, and I will come back to you once I am done. And to finish, I'm just going to slip stitch into the very first stitch that we started with, and then 1 more slip stitch, and I will cut my yarn, leaving the tail once again, so that we can use this to sew the ovaries on. I will just go here. Doesn't need to be too much, but just enough that you can secure the ovaries on. And there you have it. We have our fimbria, which will then be attached to our ovaries, like so. Awesome. So I have finished attaching my ovaries to the fallopian tubes here, and the last 2 steps that we have to do is sew the fallopian tubes to the body and then attaching the ovaries to the body as well. So in order to do that, I'm going to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 from the eye here, and we're going to count 4 rows down from the very beginning rows. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And we'll begin attaching your ovaries between rows 4 and 5. There we go. And once again, you can use a darning needle. I just prefer sewing it on with my crochet hook. And so I will pull that string through. I will then pull the string through 1 stitch on my fallopian tube. And I will continue doing this in the round until I've completed all 5 stitches, just slip stitching or just pulling the yarn through and attaching or fastening it onto your ovaries. So I'll finish doing that for both fallopian tubes, fastening them onto the 4th stitch from the top, between the 4th and the 5th stitch, and going through each of those 5 stitches that we did on the fallopian tube. And I will come back to you guys once that is done so that we can sew our ovaries to the body. And if you look at that, I have finished sewing my fallopian tubes to the uterus. And now if you just like a pigtail uterus, I love this. My partner really loves it as well. He looks like he has pigtails and they just kind of flop around. You can leave it like this. But if you'd like to attach them, I will not be gluing it this time. Like I said in the beginning, I'll be showing you guys how to sew them on. And to do this, I'm going to be attaching some of that white yarn that we had used beforehand, just right to the bottom of the ovary. So I will make a stitch and I will just pull it through and attach it to the bottom of our ovary, like so. We'll do a slip stitch and there we go. I will then cut off, let's say a couple inches, not too much, about this much yarn, just so that I can sew it to the body. And so I'll pull through that slip stitch. I'll also tie a knot here, and I will pull through that tiny end. I will just pull it through the ovary and cut it off. So there's that tiny little end. We'll pull it through. Excuse the rain if you can hear it. It is a rainy day, but it is so lovely outside that I just kept the windows open. So I've pulled through and then I'll just cut off that tiny end. Now we have our string and we're able to tie it to the uterus. So in order to do that, I'm going to count down 4 rows from where we sewed on our fallopian tube. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and I will be attaching it to this stitch here. So in order to do that, I will just go in and then I will just pull through this string. There we go. And I will repeat that 3 to 4 more times just to ensure that it is attached securely. And then I will be done. And don't forget, you have to do this for both ovaries to finish your uterus so that he ends up like so. And I will come back to show you the finished product once I'm done sewing my ovaries to the uterus. Now that I have attached my ovaries to my uterus, you can see that she is finished. And I hope that you guys really like this tutorial. I really enjoyed making it. It was one of my first patterns that I've made. And it's my first try at making a tutorial for you guys. So if you have any comments or questions or concerns with my tutorial, please let me know below. And I would love to talk to you guys and hear what you guys think. And yeah, I hope you guys have a great day. Thanks for watching.